through the day and through the year. By the way, I'm the uncle of Michael and the grand uncle of Yair and Yoav, to get it right. As you can see on the screen now, we have three different dates for today. I suppose everybody is aware that it's Sunday, the 31st of March, 2024. Maybe some are also aware of the fact that today is Easter Sunday. I suppose that a few less are aware that it's the first day of the week that everybody knows, but that it's the 21st day in the month of Adar Sheni, year 5784. And even less are aware that it's today, the first day of the week, the 21st of Ramadan, in the year 1445. That is, of course, the Islamic calculation of time. Now, we are going to start looking at the beginning of time with the creation of the world, when on the fourth day of creation, I suppose you are more or less familiar with this, the fourth day of creation, God said, may there be light on the heaven to differentiate between day and night. And those lights shall help us to fix the various special days, the days and the years. And of course, the large light shall be ruling the day, and the lesser light to the night and the stars, and also to differentiate between light and darkness. We know that the light was created already on the first day, but here we have the normal, shall we say, the 24-hour light and darkness cycle. We are, as I said today, we are going to speak mainly about the month and the years. The various parts of the day we'll treat Yetz Hashem next week, next Sunday. And it's very special. Not only is it Easter Sunday today, but we are on the verge of reading next Shabbat 2 verses from the second book of Moses, from Sefer Shemot, chapter 12, where it says, Vayomer Adonai Moshe vel Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim lemor, החודש הזה לכם ראש חודשים, ראשון הוא לכם לחודשי השנה. And Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron in Egypt, this month shall be counted as the beginning of the month. It shall be the first of the month of the year. This is like an instruction to Bnei Israel that the main counting of time shall be done according to the moon, and also that the month of Nisan, this was said on the eve of the month of Nisan, that should be the first month. That's the month in which Bnei Israel went out of Egypt. A little story about the importance of the calculating of the Jewish calendar, how important it is to keep unity in the matter of time calculation, is in the Gemara, where in the Mishnah, where there was a dispute between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua, which day would be Yom Kippur, meaning which day would actually be Rosh Hashanah, but also in particular, Yom Kippur is a day, a very sensitive day. So there was a dispute between the two. There was a difference of a day between them. Rabban Gamliel was the head of the Sanhedrin, and he demanded, as you can see in the text here, he called Rabbi Yoshua and he commanded him to come to him in the Sanhedrin from where he lived on the day which he, Rabbi Yoshua, thought would be Yom Kippur, and he should carry his walking stick, and he should carry his money on that day to show that he did not keep Yom Kippur on that day, but that he would keep Yom Kippur on the day that Rabban Gamliel had fixed as the day of Yom Kippur. Indeed, in the end, after some consideration, Rabbi Yoshua decided to follow the command that Rabban Gamliel had given, and Rabban Gamliel saw him when he came, and he kissed his head and said, "You shall be welcome, my teacher and my student, my teacher in wisdom, my student, because you have done what I told you to do." So this has come to show how important from the earliest days the Jewish leaders have considered keeping a united time calculation so that there should not be division in time. And actually, we have can mention two instances where this difference really caused a division in the Jewish people. One was between the Perushim and the Sadducees in the time of the Second Temple, when the Sadducees decided that Shavuot should always be on a Sunday because they read literally a verse in the Torah which says that it should be Mimachorat HaShabbat HaShvi'it, it should be the day after the seventh Shabbat. So they said the day after a Shabbat has to be a Sunday, and that was a cause of a very important schism in the Jewish people. And the other big schism was when the so-called Karaites started using a calendar which was somewhat different from that of the rabbinic authorities. That caused another schism. So this is a very important subject. Can I come down a second? We'll start with how we count the years. In the first indications in the Torah, usually it's mentioned simply that something happened in the life year of a certain person. Adam had a son when he was 130 years old. Noah had lived 600 years when the flood started. Avram was 75 years old when he left Haran for Eretz Israel. Later on, we have events being a sign of a beginning of a counting of time. Already in Bereshit, we have 2 years after the flood. Then we have the counting from the Exodus from Egypt. Even the building of the temple by King Solomon was counted from the year that the Bnei Israel left Egypt, 480 years after. So, by the way, that has been very common. The thing with the events, one more current such counting is the counting by after the French Revolution, when the French started using a new calendar, counting, of course, from the revolution in 1789. later on, we see that the counting is connected to the ruling of the present ruler. We have the 40th year of King David, the 18th year of King Jehoshaphat. We have just read the Megillah that Esther was taken to Ahasuerus in the 7th year of the ruling of King Ahasuerus. At a certain point, there was a very important event in the Middle East. There was a war between the inheritors of Alexander the Great, and they were fighting each other. Some were called Ptolemaic, the others were Seleucids, and they had a big battle in the year 312 before the Common Era. And actually, in the Jewish world, this became the starting point of the counting of the years, which was used in the Jewish communities actually up to the 16th century. In Yemen, the Jews in Yemen, until they made Aliyah to Israel, they actually continued using the Seleucid count called in Hebrew Minyan Shtarot. In the world in general, in the ancient world, the Julian calendar was established by Julius Caesar in 45 before the Common Era. That was a count. That counting started from the year it was believed that the city of Rome was established in 753 before the Common Era. So, and it started on the 1st of January, year 45 before the Common Era. This counting was very widespread in the whole Roman Empire. And it actually continued, but at a certain stage in the 6th century, the Christian world decided that they were not interested in the establishment of Rome. They were more interested in the birth of Jesus. So they tried to calculate when he was born and changed the numeration of the years to the year after that Jesus was born. That is called AD, Anno Domini, the year of the Lord. And that was used generally up to the 16th century, when we got the present day general calendar called the Gregorian calendar after the Pope Gregorius. The thing was that the Julian calendar was quite precise, but it had an error in the calculation of the solar year. There was a difference between the actual solar year and the year counting of the years in the Julian calendar, which resulted in an error which came to 1 day per 100 years. So therefore, in 1582, it was decided that the 10 days, which in the meantime had accumulated as a difference, that they should be abolished, and therefore it was decided in that year that the day after Thursday, the 4th of October, should be Friday, the 15th of October. We were actually quite lucky that they did actually, if they had done the same thing to the days of the week, the 15th of October would not have been a Friday, but another day in the week. And that would have upset the synchronization between our Shabbat and the Saturday. Fortunately, that was not touched, but most of the world accepted this change. The Eastern Catholic Church did not, including Russia, did not accept that change at the time. So that is why we speak about the October Revolution in Russia in 1917, which actually took place in the beginning of November. That is a result of the difference. It was only after the revolution that Russia decided to accept the Gregorian calendar. And in the Eastern Catholic Church, the festivals are still celebrated according to the Julian calendar. So they have, for example, Christmas on the 6th of January, and so on and so forth. But this is today the accepted calendar in almost the whole world for calculating and numerating the years. An interesting thing, we are going to speak about that a little bit later, but this article in a Danish newspaper 5 years ago spoke about the problem which came up in connection with the Julian calendar with regard to the date for celebrating the Easter. And we'll get back to that later on. We can continue at a certain stage, particularly after the Christian world had started numerating the years from the birth of Jesus. That could not be accepted by the Jewish world. So it became more and more common in the Jewish world to count the years according to the time that has lapsed since the creation of the world, based on the events and years mentioned in the Torah. The Sefer Seder Olam, which is from the Mishnaic times, they have a calculation which shows that the creation took place 3,760 years before the Common Era. I don't know if anybody will vouch for the exactness of that number. There are various, there are many commentators who understand that the term Yom in the story of the creation is not necessarily, and particularly as far as the first 3 days is concerned, is not necessarily a 24-hour day as we know it nowadays. But if we take the numbers and calculation at face value, then that's the result. And that's how we say that today we are in the year 5,784. That is has since the more or less since the 16th century, when more or less the counting of Minyan Ashtarot, the Seleucid count, was abolished. The counting from the creation of the world, Minyan Yetzirah, became the common norm in the Jewish calendar. But now we come to another interesting question. How many months are there in a year? We mentioned before that actually the first command that Bnei Israel received in Egypt was the command how to count the time and to base the Jewish calendar mainly on the moon. Some explain that it's because the moon gets larger and smaller and larger and smaller. It's similar to the fate of the Jewish people. Well, one can think about that. But what is important that is that the first thing that the Bnei Israel were told was that they had to account for their time. When you are a slave, you don't have any decision power over how you use your time and what you just have to follow orders, and you cannot be master of your time. But when you become a free person, then you get the possibility to be a master of your time and plan your time ahead, etc., etc. So that is very characteristic. That was the first command that was given even before the exodus from Egypt. The problem we have, that's why I call this slide a kalender kruder, which means that there's a mess in the calendar. Why is there a mess in the calendar calculating? Because the various phenomenon that we can observe in nature, which have to do with calculating time, they do not fit together in a framework of full numbers. As you can see here, we have on one hand a solar year, which is the time it takes for the Earth to circulate around the sun. That is, we know today that that's 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. That's almost 365 and a quarter days. Actually, that was the calculation which the Julian calendar was based upon in those, and that, as we said, that caused an error of 1 day per 100 years. What was the Gregorian solution to this problem? It was that usually we say that a year which can be divided by 4 is a leap year where we have 366 days, and the other years there would be 365. The Gregorian solution was that years ending on 00 would not be leap years unless also the number of hundreds could be divided by 4. So this was done in 1582. So 1600 was a leap year, but 1700, 1800, 1900 were not. And then again, the year 2000 was a leap year. And this gives an amazing accuracy compared with the real solar year. Actually, the error that is left is so small that it only comes to 1 day in over 3,000 years. So they really hit the nail on its head. Now, we were told to base our months on the moon. And that is the time that it takes for the moon to surround the Earth. And that takes 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 3 seconds. Actually, 3.333 infinity seconds. That is approximately 29 and a half days. So that is the reason that when the Jewish calendar was fixed, which it was not always, we'll talk about that, it was decided simply to have every second month 29 days and the other month 30 days. That would give us a an average of 29.5 days per month. And just before we talk about that a little later, but we can already, we know already now that 12 months of this length will bring us to approximately 354.3 days. That is important for what we'll see later on. So we have this 354, of course, does not fit in with the 365. So we have three approaches to the question of what is most important. One opinion will be that the moon is the most important, sun is not so important, and that is how the Muslims count their time. They have accepted the Jewish priority of a month following the moon, and their month is more or less identical with our month. You saw in the beginning that the Muslim date today is identical to the day in the Jewish calendar, 21st. It's the 21st day since the new moon. On the other hand, as compared with the solar year, the Muslims take 12 months, 12 moon months as a year. And so compared to the solar year, they lose some 11 days every year. Now, if you saw the Muslim calendar, the starting point of the Muslim calendar is the year 622, the year that Muhammad had to flee. And if you calculate, you'll see that in our calculations, that is 1408 years ago, but the Muslims are already in year 1445. And that is because they finished the year 11 days faster than we do. I always say it's very nice. You have your birthday more frequently. You can go on pension earlier and so on. Anyway, on the other hand, they have a problem which we'll talk about a little later. That is the Islamic calculation. The general calendar says the sun is the most important. And the fact that they call a month connected to the word moon is simply because they are aware that somehow the moon has a cycle of some 30 days. So more or less 30 days, they divide the 365 days into units, which are just around the 30 days. The way that these days are distributed are more or less arbitrary. For example, it was obvious that July, which is named after Julius Caesar, had to be a longer month than the other months. So it was 31 days. And that was taken from February for some reason. But then after Julius Caesar, you had Augustus. And Augustus couldn't go with less than Julius Caesar had. So his month, August, also had to have 31 days. So it was a whole mess, taking another day yet from poor February. But that has no importance. The important thing is the division into these units, because you can't have a calendar of 365 days without secondary division. You can't say, let's meet on day 277. Go find out what day is the 277th day out of 365. So it's much more convenient to have an intermediary measure for the timing. Now, here we come in as Jews and we say both of them are important. Both the moon, because we have been commanded to count according to the moon. On the other hand, there is a good reason for us also to take the sun into account. And why is that? That is because in the Torah, besides the verse we already quoted, that you should count Nisan as the first month, we are also told, Shmor et Chodesh HaAviv ve'asita Pesach. You shall take care and decide which month is the month of the spring, and then you shall bring the Pesach sacrifice. And not only that, but it's specifically the mitzvot which are connected with the three festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. The mitzvot are all connected somehow to phenomena in the nature. At Pesach time, the barley has to be ripe because they have to bring an offering of barley, the Omer, in Pesach. At Shavuot, one of the mitzvot was to bring bread of the newly ripe wheat to the Beit HaMikdash. And the Sukkot should be the end, more or less, of the ripening and harvesting, the harvesting and collecting all the fruits that have ripened over the summer. So our festivals, besides having historic significance, they also are very strongly connected to the agricultural cycle of the year. So therefore, we cannot neglect the sun, which is the factor which decides which season we are in. So we have to combine the two together. A very good Jewish way of thinking. So let's go and see how this was carried out in the good old days when the temple was standing and when the Sanhedrin was sitting in Jerusalem, and even when the Sanhedrin was sitting in various other places in Eretz Israel after the destruction of the temple. Our calendar was actually based upon observation. What does that mean? That people, when they observed the new moon in the sky, they would hurry to Yerushalayim and they would appear before the rabbinic court and testify to the fact that they had seen the new moon. And if they were found to be trustworthy, then the rabbis would declare that today is is the first of the new month. And that would, of course, usually be on the 30th day since last time, or the 31st day after the previous moon had appeared. That would be Rosh Chodesh. So Rosh Chodesh was said according to observation, and that's actually how it's done to this day in the Islamic calendar. That's why there's always a little bit of doubt exactly on what day the Ramadan is going to start. So this is how it was done. I don't know how they could fix a meeting which should take place next month, because you didn't know exactly when the first of that month would be. And that was the reason that when the rabbis had decided upon the particular day being Rosh Chodesh, they had to inform the whole Jewish world about it. For a period, that was done partly at least by lighting bonfires on tops of mountains, which could be seen from far away. So it could be the signal could be sent on and on from mountain to mountain. until it reached the whole Jewish world. But at a certain time, there were people who had something against the rabbis and then the Jews. So they started putting up bonfires on on wrong days and so on. So it was decided instead to send messengers out to the whole Jewish world, informing exactly about which day the rabbis had decided it should be Rosh Chodesh. Now, of course, this particular the month of the festivals were the month when messenger were sent out from Jerusalem. But of course, it took them some time to reach the kehilot, the communities that were far away, mainly in Babylonia and in Babylon, and therefore that is the reason for our having a second day of Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz, in outside Israel, because there was a doubt. You knew when it had been, you knew when it had been Rosh Chodesh Adar, but you didn't know exactly when it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and you should have Pesach on the 15th of Nisan. Now, which day is the 15th? Is it 15 days after the 30th day or after the 31st day? So for that reason, it was decided that outside Israel, you had to double the days in order to be certain that you had kept the festival on the right day. This is, of course, superfluous in our time, but it has become such an established norm to do that this is being continued to this very day, and that is the reason. Now, there was also a problem with the length of the year, those 11 days, and we'll see the solution in a moment. But basically, I suppose you know that some of our years have an extra month in order to equate our years in the long run with the solar year. Now, in the old days, again, how was that fixed? Which year should have an additional month and which should not? Again, it was done by observation. Here we have the new moon. The year was also a matter of observation. Actually, the rabbis, one of the things they would do was that they would go out to the farms sometime in the month of Shvat or thereabout to evaluate the situation of the crops. Would the barley be ripe by Pesach time? If it seemed to be okay and it would be ripe by that time, then there was no need to make any changes. But if not, if it was only in the very beginning of growing and would obviously not be ready for Pesach, then they would decide of adding the extra month to the year. That's how it worked in those days. But after the destruction of the temple and the Sanhedrin in Eretz Israel lost a lot of its influence, there was one of the heads of the community in Eretz Israel was Hillel Hasheni, the second Hillel, who was head of the Jewish authority in Eretz Israel, and he decided to establish a calculated calendar. That happened in the year 359, 1900 and something years ago. And the first principle in that calendar was what we mentioned before. There would be 12 months alternating between 30 and 29 days. So we got the average of 29 and a half. But as we saw, it is not exactly 29 and a half, So he decided on 2 months, Marcheshvan and Kislev. Both of these months can be, they come one after the other. According to the first principle, Marcheshvan should be 29 days, and Kislev should be 30. But they, as he established, both of these months can be 29 if needed, and both of them can be 30 if needed. So that they're kind of valves which can rectify small variations in the general counting of the year. And he came to the conclusion that the 11-year deficit on which we have in each year can be corrected if in a cycle of 19 years we would add 7 months. In 7 years we would add the extra month. As you can see, it comes very close. If we lose 11 days in 19 years, we'll have lost 209 days. If we add 30 days 7 times in that period, we'll have won 210. Again, everything here is not 100% exact. There are decimals to be added, but this brings us close enough to have a valid calendar, which now has been functioning. As I said, we are getting close to 2,000 years of that calendar. Although we know today that was something which was discovered only about 120 years ago, when the documents from the Middle Ages were found in a Geniza, in a place where holy scripts are kept in Cairo. It was found that there had been a dispute in the 10th century between the leader of the Babylonian Jewry, one of the great sages of that period, of Sadia Gaon, and the head of the Jewish community in Eretz Israel. There had been a dispute when exactly it should be Pesach in a certain year, 922 BC. No, CE. Sorry, 922, and there was a very serious dispute between the two, showing that the fixed calendar was not yet 100% established, and actually in that year, Pesach was celebrated on 2 different days in Eretz Israel and in Babylon, but eventually the attitude of Sadia Gaon was the one which became predominant, and since that time the fixed calendar has worked very well. We have a problem because our calendar also has a small error in it. It is something like 6 minutes. Our year is 6 minutes too long, and this gives us an error per 220 years of 1 day. You will see this year Pesach is extremely late, and we actually, it's a big question whether we should have had Pesach already last week with the full moon, and not towards the end of April. It's a question which of the months is really the month of spring, and that was exactly the problem that the Christians had before Gregorius, because they also, the Pascha, the Easter, is supposed to be on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the day, the equinox, the day where night and day are equal. That is something like the 20th or 21st of March. And because of this little error of a day per 100 years that they had in the Julian calendar, had caused the Easter to be celebrated much too late, only the following month, actually. And that is the reason for the correction which was made by Pope Gregory. So that is how we count nowadays. Actually, on Tuesday, I'm going to listen to a lecture about suggestions of how to correct the error which has come up. I mean, 220 years is a long time, but as say that this calendar has been working now for some 1800 years or so. That means that we have altogether got an error of 6, 7, 8 days. That's why, as I said, actually our Pesach this year might be a month too late. And I'll tell you next Sunday, it's a shame what I'm going to hear on Tuesday about these suggestions. By the way, if it interests anybody, then in that cycle of 19 years, these years 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, and 19 are the years in which we add an extra month. So if you want to know if a specific year is a leap year or not, you divide the number of the year by 19, and the rest, if the rest you get is one of these numbers here, then it's a leap year. And now we are lucky that 5,700 divides by 19 without problem, so we can disregard that. And we can ask 84 divided by 19. Now 4 times 19 is 76, so we have a rest of 8. And as you see, 8 is one of the leap years, and that's why we are presently in Adar Sheni. There are a couple of other small things I'll just mention briefly, which is taken into account when calculating the Jewish year. One of them is called Lo Adu Rosh, meaning that Rosh Hashanah should not be on a Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. Now, this has to do with other festivals, mainly Yom Kippur, because if we have Rosh Hashanah on a Wednesday, then it'll be Yom Kippur on a Friday. If we have Rosh Hashanah on a Friday, it will be Yom Kippur on a Sunday. And we do not want Yom Kippur to be directly before or after Shabbat. So therefore, we should take care that Rosh Hashanah will not be on these 2 days. The Sunday thing has to do with the day which is called Hoshana Rabbah, which we would not like to fall on a Shabbat, because then we cannot use the lulav and the aravot in Sukkot. So therefore, Rosh Hashanah should also not be on a Sunday. And we use those months we talked about, Macheshvan and Kislev, to adjust the calendar so that we do not get to these days. This can also be expressed in Pesach terms, because there are no variations in the days between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah. So we can say Lo Badu Pesach. First day of Pesach should never be not on a Monday, not on a Wednesday, and not on a Friday. In that way, we have years with that are the number of days we can have in each year. If it's a year without leap month, then we have 353, 54, 55 days. If there is a leap year, and that is always a month of 30 days, we have 383, 384, 385 days. That is the longest year we can have is 385 days. That is the reason why we have 54 parashot in the Torah. The Torah is divided into parashot, read every week. And as we see here, there are 385 days in the longest possible year. That is 55 Shabbatot. Now, on 2 Shabbatot, we do not read the general parasha. That is in Chol HaMoed Pesach and in Chol HaMoed Sukkot. That makes it 53. And then Parashat Vezot HaBracha is always read on Simchat Torah. Not important which day it is in the week. So we need parashot for 54 Shabbatot, and that is exactly what we have got. So in a shorter year, if it's not a leap year, or if there is only 383, there's a Shabbat less, then some parashot can be read together, 2 Shabbatot on the same Shabbat. Like Matot Mas'eh, Behar Bechukotai, etc. So it all fits together that we can complete and begin again reading the Torah on Simchat Torah. I'll just show you, that's a little bit for Hebrew, people who understand a little bit of Hebrew. We had the so-called Atbash, where Aleph, the first letter and the last letter. And so we go from the two extremes toward the middle. The next couple will be Bet and Shin. We'll see there is a list here of things which fit together in the Jewish calendar. We take the days of in Pesach. The first day of Pesach it can be is the same day as Tav, which is Tisha B'Av. So, from here we can see that if we know which day is the first day of Pesach, now this year be a Tuesday, then we know that Tisha B'Av will also be on a Tuesday. Then the next couple is Bet and Shin. So the second day of Pesach corresponds to Shavuot. Shavuot will be on a Wednesday this year. The third day of Pesach, Gimel, fits with Reish. So the third day of Pesach, that'll be the same weekday as Rosh Hashanah, which this year will be on a Thursday. Now, Dalet is a bit complicated. Dalet goes with Kuf, that's Kriyat Torah, that's Simchat Torah in Chutz La'aretz. So in Chutz La'aretz, you will have Simchat Torah this year on a Friday. Hey goes with Tzaddik, which is Yom Kippur. So we will have this year Yom Kippur on Shabbat. And Vav is the Purim which we've had. Vav it with Pei, Purim which we just had and which was really on a Sunday. And last not least, Zayin, the seventh day of Pesach, corresponds with Ayin, which is Yom HaAtzmaut. Although when it comes to practicalities, Yom HaAtzmaut is rarely celebrated on the real day of Hey Iyar because of problems not coming too close to Shabbat. But in the calendar, it is always true that Yom HaAtzmaut will be on the same day as the seventh day of Pesach. That'll be this year Monday. We can't have it Monday because then Yom HaZikaron will be on Motzai Shabbat and so on. But that's the principle. So that's Adbash. We can only hope that we'll be able to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut with a full heart this year. It's these difficult times we are in. That's what we pray for, that Yom HaAtzmaut shall really be a day of festivity as we are used to have it. And I thank you very much for your participation and for your for being with me today on this topic. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, things that were not understood or so on, you are welcome to tell me.
Thank you very much. It was very informative and great. Thank you.
Shavua tov.
Question. Thank you, Pinchas. First of all, I think we understand how much we don't understand through the shiur that you have given us. There's so much knowledge that you have shared, but in terms of the comparison to the Christian calendar, I just wanted to mention or to say that it's quite more serious whether we're doing it right or not. Because the Jewish holidays, of course, we have all the practicalities. And if we've made a miscalculation and we're eating chametz during the wrong time, or eating matzah during the wrong time, making kiddush during the wrong time, all of the prayers the wrong time, it's a bit more serious, I would say, than whether you're having your Easter at this time or another, because there's so many, the mitzvot are so much based on the time and on the schedule.
No doubt. I agree fully. That's but there are various other problems, because I can tell you it's a question: when should you really celebrate the second day? I was in Israel for a year and a half after my matric on a course called Machone Madrichei Chutz La'aretz. And in Israel, we were told by, at that time, Rav Rashi Herzog, Zichrono Livracha, that being youngsters and being in Eretz Israel and planning probably to return to Israel, while we were here, we should only keep one day of Chag. Then I had to go back to Denmark to serve in the youth movement. That had been that was the justification for the year I had in Israel, and it became Shavuot. And being in my parents' home in Chutz La'aretz, I more or less naturally celebrated with them the second day. But then I was approached later on by a good friend of my father, who had studied together with him on the rabbinic seminar, and he said to me, "What? Did you not put on tefillin on the second day of Shavuot?" So there is a dilemma. You miss a mitzvah by not putting on tefillin. What should you really do? This whole matter, it's also, to my taste, a problem with the second day, that it's correct that you can be sure that you are celebrating on the right day. The problem is that you also recite Kiddush and say Tefillot and do not put on Tefillin on a day which was actually a weekday and not a festival day. So it's not an easy problem, but that's how we have functioned now for many hundreds of years. And I don't see that being changed considerably in the near future.
But if I understand correctly, your suggestion is that because of the miscalculation every 200 or so years, we might have not, maybe we should not have had the leap year this year, because it's already too far off, if I understood correctly.
Maybe because that, I mean, hoping that the Jewish future shall be bright, and for many, many centuries, this era is going to become more and more serious. And when Pesach will actually not be in the spring month as demanded by the Torah. There might be a call for some kind of change. I'm very curious what the speaker that I'm going to hear on Tuesday is going to suggest.
I can just tell you that I was last night walking after Shabbat, and the wheat and the barley is already fully growing in the land. So just to prove your point and going back to how it used to be in the times of the Mishnah, I was just leaning down yesterday to tie my shoes, and I picked up a piece of wheat that was fully grown, and I looked at it and I said, wait, what has happened here? So for those in the land, it's actually quite, you can see it, and you can see what you have brought forward. We had a question here from Dan. You wanted to?
Yes, please.
And I just want to keep our time as well, so maybe we'll just take that one question.
My question was just want to have a couple of words about Shamsi calendar, which is called Persian calendar.
Yeah, that I'm not familiar. I'm sure there are scores of calendars. I know the Hindu and the Chinese, which are, as far as I understand, extremely complicated, much more than ours. But I must say that I'm not familiar with the intricacies of those calendars.
Okay, thank you so much. As I know, we're using 365 days calendar, so which is like based on the sun.
Yes. Somehow we all come to years, but for example, as I told, the Islamic calendar disregards the sun year entirely. They decide, it's an arbitrary decision to decide that 12 moon months should be called the year. That is an arbitrary decision, and actually I can't really understand Muhammad, because he made life of the Muslims very difficult. First, he took our Yom Kippur and turned the one fast day into a whole month of fast days. And second, if he had done so and then established a way that this would always be in the winter, I could somehow have understood. When the days are short and the nights are long, okay, so you fast a few hours during the day. But as the calendar is, the Ramadan moves from season to season, and can also be in the middle of summer, when the days are extremely long and the nights are short, and that's really a pain they caused the poor Muslims.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. I normally calling Christianity bad copy of Torah and Jewish calendar.
If what?
I'm saying that Christianity have a good copy, and the Muslim have a bad copy of tradition of Jewish tradition.
I have something to say about this triple relationship, which I heard from a very, very a big Talmid Chacham, which I sometimes hear lecturing. But that I'm afraid the time doesn't allow us to enlarge on that.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you very much, and we look forward to next week. As much as some think of Muhammad as a prophet, a few years ago when I was in Lapland and I saw Muslims there in Ramadan with 19-hour fast, I don't think he thought that far in terms of what, like you're saying, I'm saying it jokingly, but also seriously, when you're so dependent on only the moon and it doesn't sink, especially in the countries, in the northern countries of our Beit Midrash. But thank you for a fascinating shiur, and we all, I'm sure, look forward to next week. Shavua tov to everyone.
Shavua tov u'mvorach.
Shavua tov, everyone.
Shavua tov. Thank you.
Shavua tov.